welcome to Crime in Court. This is day 17 of the Delphi trial, the trial of Richard Allen. And so I did tell you in yesterday's stream that the defense has rested. So that's pretty much where we're going to pick up from because that was the very beginning of day 17, although there was a couple of rebuttal witnesses. So there was some testimony. So we'll go over that. And it's a little bit shorter today just because of that, I think. But, anyways, please hit the like button as we begin and let's get started. That looks really small to me on the screen. All right. So here I like to mix it up and give you guys different perspectives. I mix it up. We've got Bob Siegel from WTHR. It's an investigative reporter and he does recaps as well on X. And he says these are the 13 things to know from the Delphi trial, November 6th, meaning day 17. The defense surprised most people in the courtroom at 9:10 a.m. by resting its case, moments after jurors sat down without calling another witness. The prosecutor and judge were certainly caught off guard. I heard that the jurors were also caught off guard. There were some facial expressions that showed surprise by some of the jurors, according to Bob Mata, who was in the courtroom. Here is a courtroom sketch since we have no video or photos, or, well, we don't have photos. So, a courtroom sketch is all we've got. All right, number 2. Prosecutor Nick McClelland needed a 90-plus minute delay to get his rebuttal witnesses to the courthouse, so he really was not ready. Judge Gull said that she had planned to discuss jury instructions with the attorneys, but had not expected to do so that soon. Jurors got a break while waiting for the state witnesses to arrive. Next, the state recalled Breanne Wilbur. She was one of the teenage girls in that group of 4 girls that were on the Monon High Bridge that day, that said that they saw someone walking with a purpose, but they didn't really give much other descriptors than that. So, all right, so Breanne Wilbur is called back to ask about what she saw on the Delphi trails on the day of the homicides. She said she didn't see young females, so she did not see Abby or Libby or Rich Guy while walking. She didn't seem she didn't seem likely, sorry, she didn't seem like overly helpful testimony. Oh, this wasn't overly helpful testimony, but it could be referenced during closing. Maybe they'll bring it together with Brienne not seeing them. I don't know. Maybe it's because all the witnesses that the defense called said that they saw groups of people and people all around. So maybe that was to create doubt or something. I don't know. Maybe that was their counter to that. All right, number 4. The state also recalled ISP detective Brian Harshman. This is the creep that listened to every single communication and watched all the videos of Richard Allen while incarcerated and listened to all of his prison calls. So he was asked about the size and condition of the cells at the 3 prisons or jails where Richard Allen has been held since his arrest. Harshman said they're all about the same. I think that will be mentioned during closing. So I don't know regarding his mental health, but he didn't answer the question how big the cells were. I don't know. All right. So the state's final witness was Dr. John Martin, a psychiatrist who treated Allen at the Westville prison. He said Richard Allen was stable and didn't seem depressed or anxious when he first arrived in early November 2022. Well, yeah, because he hadn't been broken into a state of psychosis by his environment and the people around him. Also said everything seems to be fine when he saw Richard Allen 3 weeks later. Martin said Allen was also doing well in January 2023, so he did not plan to visit him again for 3 months. That changed on 4/13/2023 when Richard Allen showed clear signs of psychosis. Martin and other mental health staff chose to administer Richard Allen an antipsychotic drug to improve his poor condition. This was involuntarily given to him, and yeah, under said uh, antipsychotic drug, he may have been very easily swayed into confessing because of his state of confusion. He could have even been just tortured enough in prison that he would want his conditions to change so badly that he would confess. It's really interesting when you learn about false confessions and how often they happen. So sometimes they're not voluntary, or they are very, very coerced. And in this case, I believe these were coerced. The psychiatrist, said that Allen's condition improved by 5/2/2023, and he saw no signs of psychosis in Richard Allen in May or June, including on 6/20/2023, when Martin claims Richard Allen said he wanted to apologize to the families of the victims. During that time, Allen also made many other confessions. But this was during the time he was getting these injections as well. So the injections of Halidol started, and then so did the confessions. So I link the two. All right, so things got messy during cross examination. The defense showed Martin a video of Allen on 6/20/24, the same day that he said that Allen confessed. The video showed Allen restrained in a chair getting a medical exam. He was looking lethargic, dazed, motionless, and emotionless. Then came the questions. And he said, oops, 2 7s, so we have an 8. We had 2 7s, but now we have an 8. All right. So after acknowledging the dazed Richard Allen video was taken the same day as he diagnosed Allen as not psychotic, Martin told Deputy Prosecutor Stacy Diener that he stood by his diagnosis, saying that Allen was not showing signs of psychosis, even though he just saw this video of him sitting strapped to a chair, getting a medical exam, looking lethargic, dazed, motionless, and emotionless. There was even a time where he slumped in the chair and had to be pulled up, back up, propped back up from the guards. That's how out of it he was. And the doctors were like poking around, and seemed like an intrusive medical exam as well. So, and he did not react in any way. And Dr. Martin stands by the fact that he's not psychotic when Stacy Diener, the prosecutor, asks him. But when defense attorney Brad Rosie is on cross, he asked if the video made him want to reconsider that, and Martin said yes. Martin reversed course again a few minutes later. Under more questioning by Diener, the jury may have gotten whiplash from so many back and forth answers from the psychiatrist. And then there's the doozy of an answer when Diener asked about Allen being in solitary confinement. Martin said, solitary brings a stigma. So this is a state's witness, by the way, saying this, admitting this, basically confirming what the defense's solitary confinement expert has confirmed. Martin says, yeah, said solitary brings a stigma that an inmate is being punished for bad behavior or prison, but Mr. Allen had not done anything wrong and he was being treated as if he had done something wrong. That was not right. Use out of the bottle. You can't. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. No, I had to get readjusted. Um, so genie's out of the bottle. They heard it. So you really can't take it back. That he's basically confirming what the solitary confinement expert from the defense says. Um, the IDOC had to balance RA's safety and his mental health. So they're saying they were keeping him there solely because of his safekeeping order, which we still to this day don't know how that got placed on him. And well, we know it was when he didn't have an attorney and he wasn't present to speak on his own behalf. So they literally shoved this guy away in solitary confinement illegally and have been torturing him pretty much ever since. But they had to do that for his own safety, but they had to do it. They balanced his physical safety and his mental health. And so the mental health part goes out the window, I guess. Even though that's a huge part of people's safety is their mental health and feeling secure. Anyways, all right. So the testimony from the state's 41st and final witness was no home run following that jurors heard a day earlier, which was a defense witness who said Allen was definitively suffering from psychosis and a mental health crisis when he made a series of false prison confessions in 2023. At 2:20 p.m., Judge Gull told jurors, "Ladies and gentlemen, you've now heard all the evidence in this case. Thursday is closing arguments from the state and defense, which are both allowed 2.5 hours. So it is going to be a long day. And then they will get the jury instructions from the judge. And that's all for that. So those are the 12 things Bob Siegel says you needed to know about this case. Let's move quickly over to Dave Bangert, who has his own, I believe he's a reporter. I'm not even sure. It just looks like a blog, his website. But if you look it up, it's based in Lafayette, Indiana. So it is based in Lafayette.com. And he has all of the blogs from every day. So here he says the Delphi homicide trial Day 17, defense rests. Final arguments Thursday. The defense rests Wednesday in the trial of Richard Allen, accused in the 2017 homicides of Abby Williams and Libby German. I always say Liberty. I don't know. I love the name Liberty. I just love it. All right. Jury deliberations could start Thursday. Juries could start deliberating as soon as Thursday. I'm predicting probably later this afternoon, like late in the day after they get through closing arguments. That's 5 hours. That's they might not want to split it up either. So I don't know how they're going to do it, but it's a long day. And then jury instructions are to follow. So that's another probably hour or so. I don't know how long their instructions are, but yeah, so they could begin deliberations as late as or as early as today. Brad Rosie, one of the 52-year-old former CVS pharmacy clerk's attorneys, opened Wednesday's session on day 17 in the trial by telling Judge Fran Gull that the defense rested its case. Prosecutors scrambling a bit after the surprising announcement because they only put on a case for 4 days, and that was part of the problem prior was that they said that they needed 2 weeks, but they were so limited because they couldn't bring in the Odenism, they couldn't bring in the third party suspects, so I guess they didn't need that long, and they did a really good job in refuting a lot of the state's evidence in the short amount of time that they had. They were very concise and succinct in putting on their witnesses. All right, so prosecutors scrambled a bit, including a psychiatrist. They called 3 rebuttal witnesses, including a psychiatrist who treated Allen while he was held in a solitary cell for months in a segregated unit of Westville Correctional Facility. The doctor added another confession from Allen onto a stack presented during the trial. This one from June 2023, when the psychiatrist had deemed that Allen was not showing any signs of psychosis and uh, that clouded some of his previous self-incriminating statements. So he's trying to come out of nowhere and say, "Oh, this one he wasn't under psychosis. Here's a statement he said," which we don't know if it even happened or not because we saw a video of him looking pretty catatonic. So, or well, we didn't. The jury did. All right, so things ended without the defense putting Allen on the stand before ending 3 weeks of testimony. Gulls sent the jurors back to their sequestered quarters at 2:15 p.m. Wednesday, telling them to expect closing arguments Thursday. They're supposed to start at 9 a.m. Gull said the prosecution and defense had agreed to keep their closings between 2 and 2.5 hours, with a break for the jury in between. Here are some of the highlights from Wednesday in Carroll Circuit Court. Prison psychiatrist on another Allen confession. 2 days after a neuropsychologist testifying for the defense contended that fragile mental health exacerbated by solitary pre conviction prison conditions were factors in a string of self incriminating statements made by Allen in 2023. The prosecution put Dr. Martin on the stand to refute that as their final witness. So, Martin, a psychiatrist working in the Indiana Department of Corrections, treated Allen at Westville Correctional Facility, seeing him 18 times in the 12 months. Allen was in a segregated unit of a maximum security state prison. So Martin testified that Allen came to the prison with a medical history that included anxiety and depression, and Lieutenant Jerry Holman, lead detective, knew this because Allen said it in his interview at some point. All right, so they knew they could have possibly been able to crack him into saying some confessions, perhaps. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm not saying, I'm just saying. All right, so but he said Allen was doing well for the first months that he was there after his October 2022 arrest and a safekeeping order that sent him from the jail county to the Department of Corrections shortly after that. So again, he had no attorney when this happened, and not it was a really weird choice when the Cass County or whatever county jail was willing to take him, a county jail versus a state prison. State prison is incarcerated men who have, well, men and women who have convicted crimes. They are convicted. Whereas a county jail, it's people pre-trial waiting for their trial, and the rules are a little less strict, and the conditions supposedly are, better. Supposedly, I don't know the difference. I've never been to either, so hope, cross my fingers that I never do. But hopefully, that is what they say. But the jail county is also closer, so Richard Allen would have had access to his attorneys a lot better and a lot easier during his pretrial stuff. When he was at Westville, his attorneys were limited in how they could even interact with him and see him, and there were, cameras all around and being videotaped 24/7. It was not an ideal situation for him, and that's the point that the defense has really, I think, honed in on. And this is kind of, like I said, reaffirming it. This particular doctor that they brought on for rebuttal kind of hurt their case more. All right. Um, so Martin testified that he was called to Westville on April 13th, 2023, to check on Allen, who he found lying naked on his mat smeared with feces and signs that he'd been eating feces. Martin testified that he diagnosed Allen as a psychotic at that point. So even Martin did, oh, he had diagnosed him as psychotic at that point. Okay, so even Martin is saying he was psychotic. So this just reaffirms. Let me make sure that I'm not seeing a knot in there. Yeah, Martin testified that he'd diagnosed Allen as psychotic at that point. So did he just stop being psychotic suddenly when these confessions were happening? What followed were a series of involuntary injections of Halidol, an antipsychotic drug that targets symptoms including hallucinations and delusions. I've said that too on my channel and on my X page. If you want more up to date, like updates without a video on cases that I'm covering, go to my X, which is at Crime and Court, and then you'll get more updates there because not everything gets a video, unfortunately. All right, so Martin said the first injections were daily between April 14th through the 17th. Martin said once he was able to monitor the effects of Halidol on Alan, he prescribed long term 30-day treatments. Those 15 milligram doses were administered April 18th, May 18th, and June 16th, Martin testified. So they were the long term Halidol injections. So it stayed in his system for 30 days. So this is at least 90 days of being drugged out of his mind. Let that sink in. Previous testimony and evidence in the trial had Allen making dozens of confessions in April, May, and June, so all in the same months, including saying that he took the lives of Abby and Livy in phone calls to his family and in statements to the warden, a prison psychologist, and guards assigned to monitor him as his self deletion companions. Also, prison inmates who were also assigned as as his companion, which makes no sense. So, Martin testified he observed improvement in the weeks that followed. Martin testified that he didn't see signs of psychosis in follow up visits, just that he was catatonic, often done through the cell door. So he didn't even go in there. He just he peeked at him through the cell door. Okay, looks good. Bye. Making notes in medical logs that Allen seemed coherent. Martin testified that during a check on the morning of June 20th, 2023, he found that Allen had been sleeping well, eating most of his meals, and had been meeting with Dr. Manakawala, a prison psychologist. Martin said he made the decision to discontinue the monthly injections of Halidol. That day, he said to me, Martin testified about speaking with Allen on June 20th, I would like to apologize to the families of the victims. Those were his words. Martin testified that that comment was unprompted. In a written report in Allen's medical log entered into evidence, Martin wrote that the day about the confessions, the new drug recommendation, and that Allen had told him about his self-deletion ideations. Rosie asked Martin about how much he knew about the conditions in the cell block where Allen was held. He asked the psychiatrist whether being confined to the solitary cell under 24/7 video monitoring could make someone's mental condition worse. Martin agreed that that was possible. Rosie played a portion of a 21-minute video of Allen in the prison early afternoon of the very same day that Dr. Martin, Doc Martin, said that Allen was coherent and not showing signs of psychosis and made this apparent confession to him. So in it, Allen is trapped to a chair getting his blood pressure taken. Through much of the video, visible by more than half the courtroom, Allen looks catatonic, his head listing to one side at one point. In the courtroom, Allen looked away. So did members of his family. I heard Allen started crying and then it got very emotional. He had to look away, and Kathy looked away. It was not pleasant to see yourself or a loved one like that in those conditions. And he probably doesn't even remember it. And that's probably like really scary to him. Like, what else had they done to him that he doesn't remember? So Rosie asked Martin whether that was the same person he'd seen that day. Rosie asked Martin whether the video made him reconsider his assessment. He said yes on both. Two other witnesses were recalled shortly by the prosecution Wednesday. Breanne Wilbur testified in the opening days of the trial, telling the court how, as a sophomore at Delphi Community High School in 2017, she and a friend had gone to hike on the Monon High Bridge Trail on February 13th, the same day that Abby and Libby went missing. She testified about a Snapchat photo she'd taken that day at the Freedom Bridge over the Hoosier Heartland Highway. as that's even harder to say than the Hoosier Harvest Store. So, yeah, get it together, Indiana. That's too hard to say. As she walked from the town to Monon High Bridge Trail. So she'd taken a Snapchat as she was walking from town to the trail. Brian Harshman, an Indiana State Police master trooper and detective, testified during the trial about how investigators had collected more than 60 times Allen had implicated himself in the crime, including during phone calls made from the prison to his family members. Prosecutor Nick McClelland asked Harshman whether he'd monitored video footage of Allen since he'd been moved to the Cass County Jail in August of this year. The footage attempted to get into evidence once earlier in the trial, but was described earlier as including Allen making threats to staff and other behavior. Rosie objected to the reference. Gull sustained the objection and told the jury to disregard that part of the testimony. They still heard it though, so you can't strike it from your ears, unfortunately. All right, so one final, probably run at Odinism, third party theory. After both sides had rested their cases and the jury had gone for the afternoon, defense attorney Andrew Baldwin took another shot at an offer of proof to introduce evidence about a third party theory that Abby and Libby were victims of a ritualistic sacrifice done by people practicing Odinism or Old Norse paganism. Baldwin told Gull that one of the people called out to defense motions in connected in connected connection to the theory, typo on their part, in connection to the theory had ignored a subpoena to testify. This was Elvis Fields, as I'm hearing from other people who are posting it. Elvis Fields, the one who said to Officer Murphy, if my spit was on one of the girls and I had a way to explain it, w- would you look at me like I'm, would I be okay type of thing? And this was obviously very concerning. And he was one of the many third party victims that the defense has called. And they subpoenaed him and he refused the subpoena. Baldwin said that the defense still wanted the opportunity to put him on the stand to answer questions about comments made to an investigator in an interview in early 2018 about whether if traces of his spit were found on one of the girls, but he could explain why, would he still be in trouble? McClellan objected, saying both sides had presented their case. Gull asked what Baldwin thought it would show. Baldwin said he wanted to get the man on the stand and find out where the questioning led, including whether the man might say he was at the crime scene in some fashion or not, or was connected to others the defense has suggested might have been the actual perpetrators. That nexus that she's looking for. Gull has ruled that the burden was on Allen's attorneys to show a nexus between Odinism, cult, or ritualistic sacrifices, or any of the names of the men attached to the third party theory. I think they have done more than enough, but Gull is refusing to accept that there is a nexus between these individuals that the defense is calling on, or calling out, I should say. Gull told Baldwin that a necessary nexus didn't include connecting people who might be connected. She said she needed proof that there was nexus with the crime itself. She said she hadn't heard that. I disagree fully. I can't even go into all the different ways and how they are connected and why they make more sense than Richard Allen. So we'll leave that for another day. All right, decorum inside the courtroom on Tuesday. Gull scolded those in the 72-seat gallery for talking during the court session, including when she met with attorneys for sidebars. On Wednesday, Carroll County Sheriff deputies announced at each break that anyone caught talking or whispering while court was in session would get a tap on the shoulder and be escorted out of the courtroom, no questions asked. Things were quiet Wednesday. No one from the gallery was kicked out. Outside the courthouse, new signs went up. That's a sign to stay off the ramp. I'm not going to read all of this. Basically, I believe they were doing it to keep um, well, maybe this is a different reason. I heard it was to bring in ballots. I thought it was for votes, but now this is saying something else. So new signs went up on the ramp to the Carroll County Courthouse entrance that prohibited lines forming before 7 a.m. Since the beginning of the trial, people looking to get one of the 24 public seats in the gallery after accounting for seating that was reserved for families, credentialed media, the prosecutor, and the defense have been lining up early in the evening, so they like sleep there and camp out overnight. So by the time court dismissed at 2:30 p.m. Wednesday, a line of camp chairs had moved to the sidewalk along Franklin Street on the courthouse square in hopes of a seat Thursday morning. That is so stupid, but okay. Yeah, I heard it was for ballots. I guess that was incorrect. So I guess they are doing this now just to be difficult because everything about this trial and this case has been difficult, especially with Judge Gull fighting the defense and the prosecution every step of the way, making it impossible for a fair trial and impossible to um, create that reasonable doubt that I think if they were able to get into some of the third party stuff, forget the Odinism stuff. You're going to lose people. Just get into the third party stuff, but obviously she didn't allow that. But they could have, that alone would cause so much reasonable doubt that they'd be like, there's no way you can convict this man, especially on top of the psychotic behaviors and confessions that aren't really confessions. They were under duress. And the bullet that doesn't really have markings that show anything and only supposedly matched once it was fired and not cycled through the gun, which is that makes no sense. You're comparing apples to oranges. So those are the only things they have on Allen is the bullet, which is very, very shaky evidence at best. But does the jury know that? Does the jury know that ballistics evidence is very non-scientific? It's not, it's junk science. And then, do they also know that false confessions can happen very easily in prison? Those are the three things against him. The false confessions, or not three things again. The big things against him are the confessions and the bullet. And then if they had that reason, if they were able to bring in that third party reasonable doubt, then they could have, gotten made their case so much stronger because it really comes down to what does the jury believe out of the ballistics experts and the mental health experts, and what side are they going to take? Because that's really what it's going to come down to, I think. But seeing the videos of him in prison being basically tortured, I think is going to uh, help them understand where Rick's mind was at the time. Hopefully, I hope they get it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I will keep an eye out for a verdict for you guys. I assume we're probably going to go into deliberations this afternoon, late afternoon, evening, and I'll keep an eye out. So check me out on X because I will probably post it there before anywhere else if there is a verdict. So all right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Take care. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye now.